You slept 8 hours last night, so why does your body feel like it hasn't slept in days? You wake up already tired, you drag yourself through the morning, you rely on coffee just to feel like a functioning human being, and by 2 p.m., you're running on nothing, counting down the hours until you can go to bed again. And then you do go to bed, and you sleep, and you wake up just as exhausted as you were yesterday. If this is your life, here's the most important thing you need to hear right now. This is not a sleep problem. The reason you feel exhausted after sleeping has almost nothing to do with your sleep. It has to do with what your nervous system is doing while you're awake, and more specifically, what it's been doing for months or years that sleep alone can no longer undo. Here's what's actually happening. Your body runs on a stress response system controlled primarily by a hormone called cortisol. In a healthy nervous system, cortisol follows a predictable rhythm. It peaks in the morning to wake you up, drops through the day, and falls low at night to let you sleep deeply and restore fully. But when your nervous system is under prolonged stress, not just the dramatic crisis kind, but the slow grinding kind that comes from years of pressure, responsibility, emotional load, and never fully switching off, that cortisol rhythm breaks down. Researchers at MindLab Neuroscience studying chronic stress and neural fatigue found that sustained cognitive depletion suppresses prefrontal cortex function and dysregulates cortisol patterns, producing neural fatigue that accumulates faster than conscious awareness can register it. Your brain exhausts before your body does, and standard rest, including sleep, consistently underestimates the recovery time the brain actually needs. In other words, you can be physically asleep and neurologically still running. But there's another layer most people never hear about. Wright, a licensed psychotherapist who specializes in trauma and nervous system dysregulation, describes a pattern she calls tired and wired. It works like this. When a nervous system has been under prolonged threat, emotional pressure, unpredictability, hypervigilance, the constant low-level sense that something needs your attention, it gets stuck in a state called sympathetic activation. High alert, always scanning, never fully at ease. And here's the cruel irony that makes this so hard to escape. In this state, the nervous system actually interprets rest as a threat. Not consciously, you don't sit down and think, I shouldn't relax, but somewhere in the deeper regulatory systems of your body, there is a signal running that says, this is not safe. Don't let your guard down, stay ready. So when you sleep, your body goes through the motions. Hours pass, but the nervous system doesn't complete the full restorative cycle, the deep parasympathetic rest that allows the brain to consolidate, the hormones to reset, the cellular repair to happen. You wake up 8 hours later and feel like you barely slept, because neurologically, you barely did. A 2022 study published in Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience found that chronic stress dysregulates the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that controls your cortisol rhythm, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. Sleep deprivation increases cortisol production. Elevated cortisol makes deep sleep physiologically harder to achieve, and harder sleep produces more cortisol the next day. Round and round, each cycle making the next one worse. And sleep deprivation itself is a physiological stressor. When you don't sleep deeply, your body produces more cortisol and adrenaline just to keep you functional, which makes the following night's sleep even shallower, which produces more cortisol. This is not a willpower problem. This is a biochemical loop that sleep alone cannot break. But here's the part nobody talks about. And this is where it gets personal. The exhaustion you feel isn't only physical. There are 3 distinct types of exhaustion, and most people suffering from this pattern are carrying all 3 simultaneously. The first is physical exhaustion. This is the one everyone recognizes. The body is genuinely tired, muscles heavy, eyes burning, limbs difficult to lift. This is what sleep is supposed to address, but sleep only fully restores physical exhaustion when the other 2 types are also being addressed. The second is cognitive exhaustion. Sustained cognitive demand depletes the phosphocreatine energy buffer in prefrontal neurons. This is the biological fuel your brain uses for decision-making, focus, planning, and emotional regulation. According to research from MindLab Neuroscience, once this buffer is depleted, it doesn't recover through passive rest the way muscles do. The brain needs specific conditions, genuine mental disengagement, not just physical stillness, to replenish it. which means if you spend your evening scrolling, watching, consuming, worrying, you are not resting your brain, even if your body is horizontal. The third is emotional exhaustion. This is the heaviest and least talked about. Emotional exhaustion is what happens when you have been carrying emotional weight, other people's problems, unresolved conflict, suppressed feeling, the effort of maintaining composure under ongoing pressure for so long that the system responsible for processing emotion simply runs out of capacity. Research published in Burnout, the Biological Clock, found that emotional exhaustion is directly linked to cortisol dysregulation and circadian disruption. It doesn't just feel draining, it is biochemically draining, altering your melatonin secretion, your autonomic nervous system regulation, and your ability to reach restorative sleep stages. You cannot sleep off emotional exhaustion. You cannot coffee your way through cognitive exhaustion. And you cannot recover from any of them in a nervous system that doesn't believe it's safe to rest. So what do you actually do? The first thing, and the research is clear on this, is to stop measuring recovery by hours slept. 8 hours of shallow, hyperactivated sleep is not the same as 6 hours of deep, fully restorative sleep. The number is not the point. The quality of nervous system regulation during those hours is the point. The second thing is to address the cognitive exhaustion directly. This means periods of genuine mental disengagement during the day, not scrolling, not watching, not consuming, a walk without headphones, sitting without a screen. Even 10 minutes of this has measurable effects on prefrontal recovery. The third thing, and this is the hardest, is to create what nervous system researchers call a felt sense of safety. Not intellectual reassurance, not telling yourself everything is fine, but consistent, repeated experiences that signal to the body's deeper regulatory systems that the threat has passed, that it's okay to put the guard down. This might mean reducing the number of unresolved things you carry, the conversations you're avoiding, the decisions you're postponing, the emotional weight you're carrying for others without acknowledging your own. Because unresolved things keep the system on alert, and a system on alert cannot fully rest, no matter how many hours it lies still in the dark. The exhaustion you feel after sleeping is not your body failing you. It is your body telling you something very specific, that the debt it has accumulated through stress, through vigilance, through months or years of running on empty while performing as though you're full, cannot be paid back in hours. It is paid back in the slow, deliberate, often uncomfortable work of actually letting yourself stop, not just lying down, actually stopping. And if this video is making sense, if this is describing something you've felt for a long time but never had words for, subscribe, because this is what every video on this channel does. It takes the things that are happening inside you that nobody ever explained, and it gives them a name, a reason, and a way forward. The next video is waiting for you.